Tired of decluttering advice that just scratches the surface? What if organizing your home could also bring peace to your soul? There's a new book, Declutter Your Home, Declutter Your Soul, by Meghna Desai, revolutionizing the art of creating order by weaving together ancient Hindu wisdom with practical modern strategies. This isn't another book about tidying up. It's a transformative journey that addresses the root causes of clutter through 7 powerful principles from South Asian philosophy. You'll discover how nonviolence can transform your relationship with possessions, how the practice of truthfulness reveals what items you truly need to keep, and how understanding karma can break the cycle of mindless consumption. Whether you're drowning in physical clutter or seeking a deeper meaning within your living space, this book offers a unique pathway to lasting change. By applying these time tested principles, you'll create not just an organized home, but a sanctuary that reflects your values and nurtures your spirit. Ready to transform your space and your life? Declutter Your Home, Declutter Your Soul, The South Asian Art of Organizing Your Life by Meghna Desai is available now on Amazon. Just click on the link in the show notes and grab your copy today. Welcome to the Real Life Momz podcast. It is time to take a break from all our to-dos and carve out this time to focus on ourselves. I'm Lisa Foster, your host, and today I'm here with fellow mom and founder of the Balance Institute, Jo Stone. And we are discussing the myth of having it all. So this is a huge topic. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
And I mean, having it all, like, what does that even mean to have it all? And the second part of that is it even achievable to do so?
Well, I have an interesting view on this one, and that is that we've all been sold a lie. We were told that we could have it all, and people turn around and say to us, you can have it all, but just not all at once, is another common thing that's said. But I believe that we've been sold a lie that the all that most of us are looking for is not actually our real all. And by that, I mean, so many of us are almost parenting like we don't work and working like we don't parent. And you can't be a 1950s housewife and crush it in the boardroom and crush it in the bedroom and, have friends and exercise. And it's just not possible. But what I have found is that for most women, they don't actually want all of the things that they're being told that they should want. And so I find that freedom and empowerment really comes when you're able to decide what your all is. What does having it all mean for you? And for some people, that might be a big job. For others, it might not. For some, it might be, baking cookies with their kids. And for other parents, it's not. So that is what I have found is the true path to freedom, is really redefining success and deciding what matters to you.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because I think we get ideas of what it all is from other people, but rarely do we ask ourselves, like, what is it that we want? And I know that you have your own story with this that kind of led you on this path. So I'm going to ask you to share a little bit of it, because you thought you had it all, right? You were married, kids. I think you even built your dream house. I may have read somewhere.
Yeah.
You had a really great position in a job, but yet you found the missing link, which I think a lot of us have, is that we're not happy. Like, we have all these things that we may say we want, but then when you really think about it, it's like you don't have that happiness. So maybe share a little bit about your story in this discovery of thinking you had it all, but it wasn't true.
Yeah, so I would have sworn that what I ended up having was what I wanted. I had a corporate job. I climbed the ladder quite quickly. My career goal was to get the word chief in my title. So I was a chief marketing officer in a US listed company with an Asia Pacific role. I had staff in 5 countries, big responsibilities. It was on a not-for-profit board as well. So that was another sort of career goal that I had. I had 2 kids, I had a husband, and I'd built my house from scratch. So I'd literally ticked off, and this was about 32, 33. It's like tick, 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 tick. Okay. I was doing triathlon, so I was super fit and healthy. Okay, so I have it all. This is everything that I said I wanted. So why do I feel miserable? And what's wrong with me? Because is this all there is? Like, really? Something's missing. And there was an emptiness buried under the exhaustion and the guilt and the running and the list. and all of the things. So I was the type of person who I'm quite inquisitive and curious by nature. So I remember sitting back, and it was as my body started to give way, and I ended up checking myself into the hospital for what I thought was an incurable autoimmune disease, that I've gone, okay, something's wrong here. My body is trying to give me a signal that I'm off, something's misaligned. And it was in that hospital bed that I decided, all right, well, let's blow it all up. If this is making me happy, maybe I need to change it all. So my husband and I used to dream about moving to the country and opening an antique stall or doing these things. But I knew that when you're a high achiever and you're that way inclined, give me a couple of months, I'd be beating best-selling lists of my antique store. I would have replaced the point of sale system. I'd be on Instagram. I'd be doing sourcing trips overseas, not earning very much. So when you've got that type of personality, that follows you everywhere. So we decided that, all right, the only way that we could find happiness and fulfillment was to change everything outside. So we sold the dream house. That was the first domino to fall, because of the big house, I had a big mortgage, which meant I had to keep my big job. I was trapped in this cycle of keeping up with the Joneses and the cars and on the holidays and all those things. So decided to sell the house, and that then allowed me to quit my job. And then we bought a house a little further out of the city that was older, that wasn't brand new, with a pool and huge, huge house. And then I started repairing my health and realized, even after all of that, so I'd moved house, I'd quit the job. Oh, that lack of fulfillment is still there. There's something else. And that was when I realized it was me. I was the only thing that I hadn't actually changed. And so I then had to go on my own journey to say, well, what if the change doesn't come from outside of me to find that fulfillment and find that happiness? Yes, we think it can come from changing our circumstances. I blamed a lot of it on my job or my boss, or, that's what's making me unhappy. But the truth was, it was me. And so going on this journey of understanding, how am I wired? Where did all this come from? Where did my definition of success even come from? Peeling back all the conditioning, learning more about my brain really allowed me to discern then, actually, what do I want? Not what I should want, not what I think I should want, not what society tells me I should want, or not my parents are encouraging, what actually is mine. And then I rebuilt everything pretty much from the ground up.
Wow. So it's like, I feel like you had it all, then you had nothing at all, but you still felt the same in either way, right? Like you didn't feel
Yeah.
happy either way, right? So interesting. And I think that is so hard, because I think the question alone of what do I want is a hard one for a
Mm.
mom, especially. You don't get used to asking yourself that. No one asks you that. It's rare. And when people do, it feels uncomfortable.
Well, we're taught that we can't have what we want, or we
Mm,
can have what we want, but only when everyone else is taken care of. So
right.
you can have some time to yourself when the dishwasher's empty, everyone's fed, the fridge is full, the meal plan's sorted, your inbox is empty, everyone else is calm and asleep. And now you can have some time for yourself.
How do we start to unravel, almost like making a new definition of having it all for ourselves? What do people do to figure out how to feel fulfilled and how to feel happiness in what they
Yeah.
have and where they are?
Well, I found a lot of it, and I guess that's, I started up my business to help other people not have to go through the journey of blowing up their life to find this. And like, don't do what I did. Let me give you the secret and the roadmap to not having to go through that and waste, several years of your life and do all the things. What I have found is that particularly when you become a mum, your identity shifts a lot. And suddenly now there's this little human who needs you to survive. Mums are very much glorified for putting themselves last, not being selfish. And when you layer in, kids start to get older, if you're working, some people run their own business, you start to become quite lost. You don't really know who you are anymore, because the person who used to, I don't know, maybe dance on tables or go do this thing, that often isn't possible anymore because you're tired and you have little people that need you. So a lot of the whole, well, I'd love to just go live on an island in the Bahamas and, drink cocktails. Yeah, but I can't. There's all these, yeah, but I can't. Yeah, but I can't. They need me. They need me. So you have to go on this journey of actually rediscovering who you are now in your current circumstances. So the kids don't go back. So they're usually a one-way ticket. Once you have them, you have them. And so it's now, all right, well, who do I want to be as a mum? Who do I want to be as me? And separating out those parts of your life and working out what's really true for you, what really matters to you. And really the only way to do that is to create space. And I know all the mums are like, have you seen my list? Do you know how much I have to do? But a lot of the stuff that we're doing, I know everyone says it has to be done, lunches have to be made, kids have to be fed, but there's huge amounts of perfectionism. There's huge amounts of people pleasing and procrastination. I call this the trifecta of self-sabotage that affects so many women. And when you're worrying about making everyone else happy, when you want everything to be perfect, whether that's you refold the towels after the kids have folded them because they didn't do them right, or you restack the dishwasher, there is so much energy that we put into things just because we don't know how to manage ourselves.
I can remember times that it's like, oh, it's easier if I just do it
Hmm.
because it's harder and it takes more time to
Hmm.
to let them do it. But you're right. Like even this morning, I mean, my kids are older. Thank goodness they're older. It's like so much more space, so much more grace. But even this morning, we ran out of the traditional. My son makes breakfast every morning, which is great, but he makes eggs. We have oatmeal that you have to actually make, not instant. And I was like, oh gosh, I have to get to work early today. And he has late start. So I'm not going to be around for this oatmeal thing. I can't make it early. Right. And I'm like, he's like 16 years old, like, what am I doing? I don't need to worry about this. So I just wrote the instructions down on the whiteboard and said, here's how to make oatmeal with this particular one. And he's like, great, got it. I'm like, of course you do because you're old, like, why am I doing these things still? Right. Feeling bad that my son's
Yeah.
going to go to school without eating anything.
Yeah, and we do very much hold on, especially depending on the ages of your kids and how old they are. The demands are different. So my two girls are almost 15, as she reminds me every day, and 11. And as to your point, they're growing up and becoming more independent. But particularly when you have a younger one, you have to remind yourself, oh no, it's time for them to do that themselves. So motherhood is this constant sort of helping show them and then letting go and helping show them and letting go. And it can be really hard for us, especially when our identities are wrapped around being a mother or we've lost ourselves in motherhood. It can be really difficult to let that go because then you're left with this gaping feeling of, well, if the kids are done or once the kids are at school, who am I? What do I do with myself? What do I like? What comes next? And that can be really daunting and scary. And I find women tend to hit this at several checkpoints along the way. Obviously, when kids leave home is a big one, but earlier than that, when kids sort of start bigger school that, in Australia, we have two schools, we have primary school and high school, but when they are going for those longer hours, or even when you make the transition from kids being at home or in daycare to then starting school, and now you're in the school system. So any sort of these major transition points, there's like where do I fit? How do I now in this new paradigm of activities and taxi services or wiping nappies or whatever phase you're in? You've got to continually readjust and rediscover who I am. But a lot of that requires time, and it's time that you have to make because it will not magic itself.
And there is time. It's like there are these quiet spaces that you can do it even
Yeah.
when they're young, right? I mean, when they're young, they go to bed earlier than you
Yeah.
do usually. Now everyone goes to bed later than I do.
Yeah.
I'm in bed early, but that's okay because I have other times. But yeah, there are these kind of little white spaces of time that you can
Yeah.
find, or all of a sudden your kids are playing with toys like independently. We're like, wait a minute, it's quiet. I can do
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah,
Or I
and
can
do
think
something and
about
not
something.
pick up your phone because, most
Right.
women, regardless of their kids' ages, I reckon you look at anyone's screen time and there's usually at least several hours there.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, it's 5 minutes here and 5 minutes. Yeah, but is there not, how do you not learn to find space for yourself within 5 minutes? Because again, the perfectionist has this view that, well, I need 4 hours to myself, or I need an hour to myself. I need all of this stuff. And in reality, we often don't get that. We need to learn to microdose, whether it's
Yeah.
our self-discovery or our time for ourselves or our self-care or the space that we create. How can you do that in 10 minutes rather than just picking up your phone and going to whatever your app of choice is to kill 10 minutes? There's definitely better ways that we can do it.
And I think sometimes we need to feel busy, right? Like we
Yeah.
keep ourselves busy because then we don't have to deal with the thing that's really the issue, which
Mm-hmm.
is, are we really happy? Are we really creating
Mm-hmm.
the life that is our all, right? And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if we're busy, then oh, I'm too busy. I got, and I'm distracted. I don't have to deal with it. So that brings me back, circling back to how do we get to the place that we know what really makes us happy and
Mm.
create our all.
Well, like I said, it's this journey of creating this space for you. And then really, I have found certainly my journey has been about shedding the conditioning, working out of the things that I want. What are the pieces that I actually want versus I call it conditioning or society or gender says I should want. So one of the big things I had to wrestle with, especially when I had my first, was I've always wanted to work. It's been a really important part of who I am. I've always been really ambitious. And I still remember when I was going back to work in Australia, we have quite generous maternity leave. So I took 9 months off with my first. And my mum said to me at the time, are you sure you want to go back? Are you really sure? Now that you've had a baby, doesn't it change things? And I said, no, I love her, but I'm going back. And then when I had my second, surely now, when you've got two, don't you want to, why don't you go part-time? Why do you have to work so hard? Why do you have to travel? Like, Mum, I love my job. It's who I am. And so, really peeling back and dealing with the mum guilt and a lot of the shame that comes with doing something different from what other people expect. And so, it's peeling back those layers. What is it that you really want? Where do you feel put upon or obligated to do things? And usually, a really big, I guess you'd say, red flag that you can follow is resentment. I always say that resentment is like the Las Vegas of when you're feeling resentment for doing something, it's like, look here, because you're doing something that you don't want to be doing. Either you've said yes when you wanted to say no, or you've breached a boundary because, someone said, can you stay later and you don't really want to, or you're doing all the things and then your partner's on the couch on their phone and you're resentful of them because they got more sleep than you did. All of those resentments point to a need that you have. So if you follow the resentment map, that is a really good indicator of, okay, well, that resentment says, don't like that. I don't really like that. I don't really like that. Then you can start asking yourself, why? Why am I resentful of my boss? Or why am I resentful of that mum down the street? Or why am I resentful of that other thing? Oh, okay, because I don't like it, or I really want that and I don't think I can have it. So, following clues as to what's going on in your environment can be ways for you to focus in the little time that you have your energies on what do I really want? And that's a brilliant clue to follow.
Yeah, I love that so much. I wish I wish I talked to you a few years ago. But but yes, I mean, because yeah, you feel resentment and it is like a negative feeling, but it's almost like turning it into a positive thing where you're like, okay, this is uncovering a clue of what I really do want and don't want, right? Like, so that is, yeah, feelings are so strong and there's such great clues to actually figure out what you want, right? Instead of just selling your home and moving and getting rid of all the things just to just to say like, oh no, I'm still here and I'm still the same person. I love the idea of first maybe follow the resentment that you're like, how am I
Follow the
feeling about
resentment.
that? Follow it.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we've got really good at numbing our feelings. The
Mhm.
resentment's there, but we will just, you mentioned, be busy or someone needs us, even though we're feeling guilty, we're feeling resentment, we're feeling frustration, we're grumpy, we're exhausted. So we end up swimming and almost become chemically addicted to this, I call it our emotional home, that's full of resentment and guilt and shame and frustration. And then we wonder why we don't know what makes us happy because there's no room for that. It's almost like we're full up of all of these negative emotions, but because we won't deal with them, because we're not emotionally literate and we've never been taught how to handle our emotions, how to work through them, how to let them go, then it feels like there's no space for joy. There's no time for joy. Have you seen my list? Or, we've got to get here, we've got to get there. So you've got to learn, really build up your emotional literacy, learn to understand and to actually feel rather than avoid or escape. And then you can start making space for those 2 minutes of joy when a kids, depending on the ages of, people's kids, there's nothing like seeing a toddler like just barely laugh. It's almost impossible, even just on a YouTube video, not to just see your kid laughing and just feel that joy, but to make the space for it because our nervous systems literally are not capable of feeling joy because we've conditioned it out of our system.
Yeah, we're so in survival sometimes. It's so true. It's like joy is almost like, oh my God, I don't have time for joy. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
time for that. It gets almost frustrating a little bit because you feel like if you do something more fun and joyful, it's taking away from all the things that you have to get done. And I'm just listening to myself and going like, why do I want to even get any those things done if they don't even bring me joy? I have a list of things that you
Exactly.
have to do, but most of those things can totally wait. No one's dying, and you can sit and watch your toddler laugh or just be in the moment and have more fun than saying, oh my God, I got to do the laundry, the dishes, the whatever. That doesn't actually even matter. So what? No one has clean clothes. Big deal, right? Like it's not like that's not happened sometimes to you or before, right? It'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what most women who come to me always say is I've lost the joy. I don't know how to access calm anymore. I'm just constantly resentful, guilty, angry, exhausted. And that's what they want. They want more joy because they're going, what's the point? Like, why did I have kids if I'm just yelling at them all the time and rushing them around places? Like that's not what I had kids for. They've forgotten that side of them. They've become so identified with the list and achieving things and ticking things off that their identity has become so attached to that they don't know how to let it go.
Yeah, you're not really living if that's the case.
No,
You're really just surviving.
no, that's
No,
100%. Yeah, that's an existence, not a living.
yeah. Now, you do have a program, you mix neuroscience, ancient wisdom, a little holistic practices. I can't wait to hear about that. Tell us a little bit about your approach in conquering some of these things we talked about.
Yeah, I have found that my program is very much based on my own personal experience. So it's not a textbook, it's not somebody else's materials. As I went on this journey of unpacking my life and working out what I really wanted, I was able to tap into one of my superpowers, which I didn't realize I had until this time. And when I was in corporate, my job, whether it was in marketing or as an executive, was to my superpower was to go into a business unit or a marketing campaign, and I would pull it apart and put it back together again in a way that made sense. So I would go in and run projects and pull them apart and put them back together again, or I'd do marketing campaigns or products for customers. And I then basically applied that skill set to my life. So I pulled my life apart and looked at all the parts and said, well, do I want that? No. There's this framework that I used to use. Is that useful? Yeah, but no, I need to add this to it. Or I do this at home. Do I do? Oh my God, I do that at work and at home. So what I then layered underneath that is a really strong understanding of neuroscience and how my brain works. Because I'm the type of person that if someone says meditate, I go, why? Like, why? 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 I'm sure I drove my mum crazy. However, when I understand more about I teach clients about their brainwave zones and how when you're in theta brainwaves, it's when the pathway to the subconscious mind is more easily open. And that's where the things that you don't want live. So if you meditate in the morning or the evening, the doorway is going to be more open. That's going to be more efficient for you to change your beliefs to what you want. Aha. Okay. Now I get it why I might meditate before bed because you've given me a logical, rational reason that now makes sense. And now I've bought in and now I'll do it. So, what was missing for me and anything I understood and I had to go and build myself was this really deep understanding of what makes me a perfectionist. I know I am one. I used to be quite proud of it. But what are those traits and characteristics or what makes me a people pleaser? I never really I didn't resonate with that term until I found out all the characteristics of people pleasers and how it means I didn't have any boundaries and what is a boundary? Oh my gosh, how do I understand what these things are? So I then went and built not just the neuroscience, but then blended, as you mentioned, some ancient wisdom. I've trained in kinesiology, a whole range of different modalities together to say, all right, well, what actually now is the roadmap? If you want to rediscover who you are, I didn't want anybody else to go on a 5-year journey through the abyss like I did. How do I take what I did and lay it out in a way they can just follow step by step? And then they will learn how to find calm. They will learn how to access joy in a way that their intellectual brain is satisfied, but also that fits in with a busy life. Because what I hated was you'd go on these big leadership retreats. I was, 5 days out of the office here and or seminar there, and you go, this is great. You'd come back and go, um, forgotten, no idea. Didn't change a thing, weren't practical. Or they'd say, I had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I was at this leadership retreat. Right. So you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to meditate for an hour. And then you're going to have a green drink. And then you're going to journal for 45 minutes. I'm like, who's getting the kids up? Who's giving them breakfast? Who's packing the daycare bag? Oh, well, you just get up earlier. No, I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. because then sometimes the baby would wake me up at 4 a.m. So nothing ever felt practical for our lives. It was either built for sort of more, I mean, even then they don't have more time, but people who aren't working, or they were built for people who worked 80 hours a week and had nannies doing everything for them and raising their children. And I didn't want either of those options. There was no middle path. So I had to build tools and frameworks and strategies that actually worked when you're a busy mom doing all the things, when you're also working, when you also maybe are caring for elderly parents, you're maybe a member of your community or your church or so you want to do all the things. You don't want to have to give everything up, but you need tools that are going to work within your life. And so that's what I've built. So across 12 weeks, I give people this beautiful roadmap that helps them rediscover who they are and bring that version of themselves to their family and to their workplace and to their community.
Yeah, I love the word roadmap. That sounds amazing. Can you tell us maybe one of those tools or strategies that are within your roadmap that like maybe some parents could start trying to do?
Yeah, so one of my favorite tools that I share with people is, I mentioned the word calm, or you could even do it with joy. Let's do joy because we're talking about it before. As when you learn more about your emotions, you realize that we create rules for our emotions. And that is that I will feel joy when my list is done and when the kitchen bench is clean and when everybody else is in a good mood and in their pajamas and my inbox is under control and I'm rested and resourced, and then if it fits within this 10-minute window, then I will feel joy because it doesn't disrupt anything else. It's no surprise that when you put all those conditions on accessing an emotion, that it never happens. So what I do is teach people to access, and these rules apply to calm or confidence or joy or any emotion that you want to feel. And when you get to strip out those rules and change them to ones that serve you, such as I will feel joy anytime I smile. I will feel joy anytime I have more than 1 second to feel joy. We then really are able to take our power back, because when we outsource our power, I'll only be calm when the kitchen bench is clean, when the fridge is full, when we then spend our lives trying to control everything outside of us because we want to feel calm. So I can't feel calm until the house is clean because, calm house, calm mind. But then you spend your life running around like a headless chicken trying to clean everything and tidy everything because you can only feel some way when something that's outside your control in your external environment is a certain way. And that's just a recipe for burnout and exhaustion. So the more that you can recreate your rules for all your emotions, whether it's, okay, you realize that you haven't felt any joy today. All right, well, grab your phone for a good cause. Go and look up silly cat videos or silly kid videos or silly something. And within about 30 seconds, you can actually experience joy. We have to train our nervous system to handle that. But for me, it started with rewriting the rules.
Yeah. I love that. I hate the statement when I blank. Like I hate
Mm-hmm.
when, I want to now, like forget about the when,
Mm-hmm.
because the when never
Yeah.
happens. Something always happens. And then you'll never get to that joy or calm or whatever it is you wanted
Mm-hmm.
anyway. So yeah, so I love that. Now, if there's one thing you can tell a mom to do today, what would that be?
I would say to recognize that you can have it all, but you need to decide what your all is. So go on that journey, be brave and look inside, create some space because it is always there, even if it's just when you're on the toilet. The space is always there. We just have to look for it. And the more that you can investigate, especially if you're feeling unfulfilled and you're feeling empty and you're exhausted, and any of what we've been talking about resonates, which I know it resonates with most women I talk to in some way, shape, or form, that you have the responsibility to make yourself happy. And it's a responsibility that can feel like a burden, but it can actually be the greatest gift that you give yourself is to work out who you really are, to work out what makes you truly happy. Because then, in you becoming the best version of yourself, in really knowing who you are, you give your kids permission to be who they are. And that's usually all we say. We just want our kids to be happy. We want our kids to be authentic. We want them to, be who they are, but they are never going to be happy and they are never going to be who they are if they've got no blueprint to go from. So that was one of my big motivations. My kids aren't going to learn to be happy unless I'm happy. They're not going to learn to be who they really are if I am teaching them that you can't be who you are because it's not acceptable or it's not safe or it's not right. So we have to go first if we want to break these generational chains that are often passed down in families. We get to be the ones who do the work. We don't have to, but we get to do it today for our kids so that they can be authentic, they get to be happy, they get to find calm, and it's a journey that you'll never regret.
Yeah, that ripple effect is so true, so real, and so important. And I love how you said, create our all. You can have it all. It's your all though, not anyone else's, and that can look so differently. So I think that is a huge thing to also think about, like what is your all? Well, where can the listeners find you?
So I also have a podcast if they're podcast fans, and it's called Balance and Beyond, and you'll find it on Spotify and iTunes and all the places. And you can also visit balanceinstitute.com, which is where I have more information about my story, who I am, what I do. And there's also a range of free masterclasses and various programs that they can come and learn more about their perfectionist or their imposter or whatever it is that plagues them.
Yes, or stands in the way from figuring out their all. That sounds amazing.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this topic with me and just sharing your story.
Thanks for having me. It's always great to talk about this. We need so many women to go on this journey.
Thank you for listening to this episode, Joe. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. And if you want to learn more about her and all the things that she offers, just click on the link in the show notes. And until next week, keep carving out time for yourself. Keep creating that space that you need to figure out what your all is, because you can have it all, but it's your all, not anyone else's. And of course, always make sure that you're putting yourself on top of your to-do list.